Animated films are always a treat to watch. Whether it's for its colorful characters, jaw-dropping animation, or the snappy writing, animation films have left their mark on pop culture and the lives of many fans. Yet despite the years of hard work that goes into making these clever films, the occasional mistake might end up slipping into the final cut. It's not the end of the world or anything, but we thought we'd go through some of these mistakes that you'll be unable to not see the next time you watch your favorite animated feature. Before we get started though, be sure to click on that subscribe button to stay in the loop with Screen Rant. But first, can you guess the hit animated feature based off of these emojis? Stay tuned to find out the answer.
Vote! The gods have given me a man!
Moana. We can safely say that Moana was a huge hit for Disney, offering up a great new character to root for, some irresistible catchy new tunes by Lin-Manuel Miranda, and some truly gorgeous effects. The film dazzled critics and fans alike, but while you were enjoying the magic, you may have missed some unusual mistakes that hit this seafaring adventure. One such mistake comes courtesy of Dwayne Johnson's lovable demigod, Maui, who has the ability to shapeshift and is tasked with helping young Moana in her quest. Maui seems to be well versed in the old Disney archetypes. Perhaps being a demigod has granted him access to future knowledge because he clearly calls out an age-old Disney princess trope. When arguing with Moana about whether or not she's a princess, Maui states to her that if she wears a dress and has an animal companion, she must therefore be a princess. There's only one problem though. Moana isn't wearing a dress. Instead, she's actually wearing a skirt made of natural materials and a crop top. Perhaps Maui isn't well versed in fashion details, but she's clearly not wearing a dress. Therefore, his argument falls on top of itself. Maui has his strong points, but perhaps this demigod should avoid a career as a fashion critic. On the other hand, Moana may not be wearing a dress, but she definitely rocks the animal companion bit in classic Disney fashion. Zootopia. Zootopia was a great time at the movies, winning Best Animated Picture at the Oscars for Disney and has become a modern classic for the Mouse House. The tale was full of humor, great characters, and a fun story that both children and adults got a kick out of. In fact, the story seemed to have many grown-up references and themes that set it apart from other Disney classics. Yet despite being a much more complicated and engrossing picture, these talking animals actually are lacking some basic math skills that would be handy in a grown-up world, especially when it comes to money. During the movie, Judy Hopps reports that Nick earned $1.46 million over 20 years, based on the equation 200 times 365 times 20. There's just one glaring and really obvious problem there though. The young officer forgot about leap years. There would be 5 of those in 20 years, so the equation should actually be 200 times, in parentheses, 365 plus 15 plus 366 times 20, end parentheses, minus 1, 461,000. A police officer should have known about the leap year and factored that into the equation. Now the information being presented is factually wrong. We'll hold this one to being an accidental slip-up on the writer's end and thankfully not any real-life accounting errors. Thankfully, the error didn't take us out of Zootopia for a single minute, as the film was that wonderful and fully deserving of its Oscar win. Hopefully, Judy's math skills will have improved by the time Zootopia 2 hits theaters.
Oh my gosh! I thought you guys said you were musicians.
Sing. If you enjoy seeing talking animals sing your favorite tunes, then Sing is definitely the movie for you. Sing followed the story of Buster Moon, a go-lucky koala who embarks on mission to save his father's theater by hosting a singing competition. There's a catch to all of this, of course, but the promise of financial reward proved to be quite compelling for many, and hundreds of other animals showed up to the auditions, hoping to win the part. Buster Moon may have a plan, sort of, but he definitely is not too familiar with biology, specifically those of the animal kingdom. Even scarier, he's not even too familiar with his own. Early on in the movie, Buster states that his plans have changed from being the first koala bear astronaut, which is a pretty impressive goal, but there's one giant problem in that statement. Koalas aren't actually bears. That may look like it, but koalas are actually part of the marsupial order, much like kangaroos.
Oh, after you.
Lego Batman. Lego Batman was a wonderful treat to watch. With its non-stop comedy, great visual design, and of course, Batman, it was hard not to enjoy this movie. The plot focused on Batman's never-ending crusade against the Joker and his desire to be alone, despite clearly wanting a family of his own. Fans of Batman lore and history found the tale to be quite touching, despite how funny the movie actually was. But one such joke put a huge dent in the movie's own history and logic and ended up raising some eyebrows concerning the character Robin. Early on in the movie, Lego Batman decides to showcase some of his early incarnations throughout the years, from Adam West all the way to Christian Bale, giving us a montage of Batman's own personal and very meta history. There's one problem though. If Batman remembers all these events in his various incarnations, wouldn't Lego Batman remember Robin? He was the Caped Crusader's sidekick in a few of the films and TV series, so if Lego Batman could remember these particular events, then it'd make sense that he'd remember once having a sidekick that ended up dressing the same way that Dick Grayson, Batman's accidental adoptive son, was dressing up as. Boy, I wonder what's up with that. Perhaps despite being the world's greatest detective, Batman actually has a selective memory about his past.
Cupcake?
Trolls. We still haven't gotten that song out of our heads, you know. The one Justin Timberlake did for the movie that ended up getting an Oscar nom for being so darn catchy. In the tradition of turning toys into feature-length films, Trolls actually did pretty well for itself critically and commercially. The star power of Timberlake and Anna Kendrick helped make this a fun, family-friendly adventure that had one super catchy soundtrack. While the story was going down though, there were a few curious errors that made their way into the final cut of the film. One such error comes early on in the film when we see Princess Poppy teaching her fellow trolls about the horrors of the Bergen. During this scene, a purple troll licks himself, stating that he does in fact taste good, and it's no wonder that the Bergen wants to eat trolls. To the left of this troll, there is, well, nothing, a small gap between him and the adjacent troll. Yet when we cut back to this troll, there is a curious-looking green troll who's suddenly joined the party. That may not be so weird, perhaps he joined the gathering later on. The camera heads back to Poppy for a few moments before giving the audience a wide shot of all the trolls. The little green troll is gone. That's some spooky stuff. Perhaps he was never there to begin with. That, or whatever trolls taste like, might also have some hallucinogenic properties. Kubo and the Two Strings. Kubo and the Two Strings may have gone under the radar for many animation fans in 2016, but that doesn't mean this film should be missed. In fact, it can join the ranks of some of the best animated features this decade. An emotional and very touching adventure that is honestly the closest thing we have to a Zelda feature so far. The plot sees the young Kubo team up with Monkey, Beetle the Samurai, and Hanzo, an origami samurai, as they embark on a quest to find 3 pieces of armor in order to defeat Kubo's evil uncle. If you like Lion King, this one's for you. Despite how great the film was, there were a couple of goofs that ended up finding their way into the final cut of the film. To be honest, there wasn't much to be found concerning Kubo. So the animators definitely deserve some praise from us for making our lives that much harder. In the film, Kubo and Beetle, voiced by Matthew McConaughey, find themselves battling the first boss on their quest, a giant skeleton. The monstrosity threatens to stomp down on poor Kubo, who had his shamisen instrument on his chest as the skeletal foot comes charging down. Beetle is there to save the day, however, and snatches Kubo into the air just in time. There's just one problem though. The shamisen has found its way onto Kubo's back. We know this film deals heavily with magic, but even this doesn't make sense to us. The minor slip-up thankfully didn't ruin the movie at all, and it was ultimately nominated for Best Animated Picture at the Oscars.
We will never forget you, Dory, and we know you'll never forget us.
Finding Dory. Finding Dory was the smash hit sequel to the beloved 2003 film Finding Nemo and reunited the cast on another adventure across the ocean in search for a beloved family member. This time around, it's Dory who has been taken, who ends up in the same marine life institute that she grew up in with her parents. It's a touching story of finding out what family means to you and what one would do to get back to said family. Despite how fun the story was though, there was naturally a few slip-ups here and there in the Pixar feature. One such incident came during the stroller scene. Hank and Dory are navigating the park incognito-like with the help of a stroller, which Hank navigates with his extremely useful tentacles. He may have handled it better than he had any right to, but he naturally ended up colliding with a child on his crusade. Before the crash, the child is wearing a blue and white striped t-shirt, yet after the camera cuts back to her a few moments later, the child is in tears over her spilled popcorn and has somehow managed to change into a pink shirt. Mistakes like these aren't as common in animated films, so it's curious to see how it managed to make its way into the final cut. Whatever the reason is, though, you'll be hard-pressed not to notice the switch on your next viewing of Finding Dory. Secret Life of Pets. The Secret Life of Pets gave audiences a peek as to what might be happening behind closed doors when their beloved animal companions are left alone for the day. Much like Toy Story, the animals take on a life of their own and live out a different existence that is unknown to humanity. The movie opens up with a pretty creative and funny montage sequence showing how the various pets go about their day behind closed doors. Some of them end up pretending they can fly with jets, end up eating a bit too much, or reveal that they actually hate their owner's choice in music and prefer something a bit wilder. It's during this scene that we get to see Mel bark at a squirrel that's outside on a tree near the window. Perhaps you thought nothing of it at the time, but at the end of the film, you may have noticed something was odd this time around. As the camera begins to zoom out from the apartment, we get to see that Mel's apartment was one floor below Max's, at around 7 or 8 floors up. What's fishy here is that there is no tree by the window, or any tree for that matter. It's simply vanished into oblivion. Perhaps there's a secret life of foliage that we're also unaware of. Can we please get a Secret Life of Pets and Lord of the Rings crossover happening? That's gotta happen. Kung Fu Panda 3. The Kung Fu Panda series has become something of a family classic over the years, offering great humor and character moments that many will look back fondly over for years to come. Kung Fu Panda 3 continued this tradition in 2016 and finally allowed fans to meet Po's father and family. It was a touching moment for the franchise, but even this Kung Fu master occasionally slips up. We know that Po, voiced by Jack Black, is a die-hard Kung Fu fanboy, constantly studying in order to become a master at the mystical martial art and, when necessary, save the day. In the third film, Shifu mentions that the Dragon Scroll prophecy has been a thing for 500 years, but this contradicts a statement made all the way back in the first Kung Fu Panda. In that movie, Po states that the prophecy has been around for 1,000 years, so it seems odd that a superfan like Po, who's been studying so hard, would actually get this piece of information wrong. We don't see Shifu being the one who's at fault here, so Po must have forgotten his previous statement. That, or perhaps just one of the writers was mistaken. To quote Yoda, a prophecy that was misread, perhaps. This is likely a case of mixing up script information, but by the time the animation was done, it was too late to change what was already completed. At least Po's error didn't have any dire consequences. The Boss Baby. The Boss Baby surprised just about everyone when it came out and proved itself to be quite the hit for DreamWorks, raking in almost $400 million globally. The film took, shall we say, inspiration from the current political climate, and many people sought to be entertained by the little Boss Baby. The movie may have been a huge financial hit, but just like its source of inspiration, there was a few factual mistakes in the script that had us double-checking our sources. One such slip-up was so subtle, but once we heard about it, we couldn't let it go. Towards the end of the movie, the alarm clock known as Wizzy lets Tim know about daylight savings time. Did you catch the mistake? Many wouldn't, but it's there. The term is actually daylight saving time, without the S. It's a really minor mistake, but considering the amount of people working on the movie, including producers, writers, actors, and directors who didn't catch the slip-up or think to double-check the term during production, there really isn't any excuse as to why this slip-up happened. Perhaps daylight savings with an S is actually the fake way of saying it, and we've all been misled this whole time. Wouldn't that be something? Either way, the Boss Baby doesn't care if he's right or wrong because he was laughing his way to the bank. That's it for now, folks. What did you think of our list? Which animated mistake surprised you the most? Do you enjoy learning about these kinds of mistakes, or do you prefer not knowing so you can continue watching your favorite films without looking for mistakes? Whatever you think, let us know in the comments section below, and be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for more awesome content like this every day. And of course, the answer to our emoji trivia question is, thanks for playing!